compounds, the four properties of carbon which makes it different from all the other elements. Versatile nature of carbon, catenation, tetravalency, and let's study types of organic compounds. So let's start with the first one, versatile nature of carbon. Why is it so different from all the other elements? The reason is carbon forms covalent bonds, and when it forms covalent bonds, these covalent bonds will enable carbon to form long or large number of compounds. Because carbon is forming sharing bonds, it can share with any electron. But on the other case, carbon has not one but four different bonds, and because of that, the number of carbon compounds were recently estimated to be 3 million. That is 30 lakh compounds. Don't get so feared about this. We are going to study only a few of them. What could be the reason for this? The reason is carbon has two properties. First is catenation and the other is tetravalency. What is catenation? Catenation is the property of carbon of self-combination of atoms to form large molecules, and that is called catenation. Now carbon forms a bond with carbon, and the other carbon forms a bond with the third carbon with the fourth with fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, tenth. A large molecule of carbon is formed. And because of this, there is a compound having 1 carbon, 2 carbon, 3 carbon, 4 carbon. Does a number of carbon compounds increase. And that is called a straight chain hydrocarbon. Whereas if a carbon comes in the center, as you can see, 3 carbons are in a straight line and there are 2 branches now, one going down, one going straight. So that is why this becomes a branch chain. And if in a straight chain, the last 2 carbon bond between themselves, they form a closed chain hydrocarbon. So this, my dear friends, is catenation. And because the same number of compounds can form different structures, the number of compounds increase. Similarly, the second property is tetravalency. Now, carbon atoms may be linked by single bonds. They can also be linked by double bonds. So if you remove 2 bonds and substitute it, double bond. If you remove 4 bonds and substitute it, triple bond. So that is why even more number of carbon compounds can be formed. Similarly, elements that show catenation are, the first one is carbon, obviously. The second one is sulfur. Sulfur has a very famous crown-shaped molecule called as S8. Similarly, silicon also can share with silicon itself, making a larger compound. Phosphorus also shows catenation. Now what is tetravalency? You understand tetra as mono, di, tri, tetra, 4, and valency means valency. So tetravalency means carbon has a valency of 4, meaning it has 4 different chances to react with 4 different elements. Since carbon has a valency of 4, it is capable of bonding with 4 other atoms of carbon or atoms of some other monovalent element. Like for example, carbon is sharing with hydrogen. Now if I replace one hydrogen with one chlorine, because hydrogen and chlorine have single valency, they can be substituted, making the number of compounds even more. At the beginning of 19th century, compounds obtained directly or indirectly from plants and animals were called as, you guessed it, organic compounds. Organic meaning living compounds. Compounds obtained from minerals, on the other hand, were called as inorganic compound. In fact, organic compounds were only living because of something called as the vital force. Now this was a pseudo force, pseudo meaning fake force. People didn't know anything about life. How is it that an element or a compound can become living? So they had to create something. They created a pseudo force called as the vital force. And because of that vital force, we were what we were. But that was proved wrong. By whom? By a scientist in Germany. And this scientist in Germany actually changed the entire world. How did he do that? This scientist was called Wöhler, Friedrich Wöhler. And this German chemist did a great thing. He discovered urea. This is how he looks like. He discovered urea from an inorganic compound called as ammonium cyanate. And he did it in 1828. So meaning before 1828, we had no clue about ourselves. But when urea got formed by an inorganic compound, we understood that no vital force is required for living compounds. And then when we studied all the compounds of the body, we understood that organic compounds are nothing but compounds containing carbon and hydrogen, which are obtained from living system and nowadays which can also be synthesized in the laboratory. So he changed the entire world and the entire world's thinking by discovering something organic from inorganic substances. So what are these organic compounds? Let's study one. Hydrocarbons, that is fuel. Second, haloalkanes. Third, alcohol. Fourth, aldehydes. Fifth, ketones. Sixth, vinegar-like compounds. So let's study all of them in the next module. Stay tuned, very important module coming up.